In this vast and restless modern world, I've come to realize that what we lose isn't just time. It's the quiet peace inside our own hearts. Maybe you felt it too. The days rush by, filled with noise, deadlines, and distractions, until suddenly we're living on autopilot, moving but not truly living. One evening, after a long day, I sat alone at the kitchen table. The house was silent, the light soft, and for the first time, I let myself breathe. No rushing, no multitasking, just breathing. And in that small, ordinary moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Space. Space to think, to feel, to simply exist. That moment led me to discover Japanese minimalism, a gentle philosophy that teaches us to live with intention, with clarity, and with grace. It's not about having less just for the sake of it. It's about creating room for what truly matters: peace, purpose, and a life that feels lighter on the heart. Because sometimes the most meaningful change begins with choosing a quieter way to live. Japanese minimalism is often misunderstood. People imagine empty rooms, cold white walls, a life stripped down so much it feels more like sacrifice than peace. But the truth, the real heart of Japanese minimalism, is far softer, far warmer, and far more human than most of us realize. It isn't about throwing everything away. It isn't about living in poverty or forcing yourself into harsh simplicity. It's about living with intention. It's about recognizing what truly matters and gently releasing what doesn't. I didn't understand this at first. Like many people, I thought minimalism meant being strict, disciplined, almost extreme. But then, a few years ago, I had a conversation with an older Japanese woman while traveling. We were sitting together in a quiet garden behind a small tea house. Autumn leaves were drifting down, the air was cool, and the world felt wonderfully unhurried. She told me something I never forgot. Minimalism is not about less, it's about lightness. She explained that in Japan, especially among older generations, minimalism isn't a trend or a challenge, it's a way of respecting life. It's a philosophy passed down silently, through habits, through spaces, through the way people move and speak. It's about tonchang kongzang, respecting the space around you, not cluttering it with things that distract or weigh you down. She said that every object you keep should earn its place, not by being expensive or impressive, but by being meaningful, by bringing comfort, usefulness, or joy. Nothing more, nothing less. Japanese minimalism is keeping what makes you happy and letting go of what makes your heart feel heavy. For many older Japanese adults, this isn't something they consciously label as minimalism. It's simply how they were raised. After the post-war years, when life was uncertain and resources were limited, people learned to appreciate what they had. They fixed things instead of replacing them. They bought carefully, shared what they could, and valued experiences more than possessions. And even today, that spirit continues. What surprised me most was how emotional this philosophy is. It's not just about physical clutter, it's about emotional clutter too. Japanese minimalism teaches that your home is a mirror of your inner life. When your space is gentle, intentional, and calm, your mind can breathe. When you remove what no longer serves you, your heart gets lighter. She told me, if you want a peaceful life, let your home be peaceful first. That single sentence stayed with me long after I left Japan. I started noticing the way I filled my days, the inbox full of things I didn't care about, the shelves packed with items I never used, the constant background noise of busyness. I realized how much weight I was carrying without even noticing. So I began small. I cleared a drawer, then a shelf, then a corner of my living room. And every time I released something, a sweater I hadn't worn in years, a stack of papers I didn't need, an obligation I felt guilty saying no to, I felt something inside me soften. I felt like I was reclaiming space, not just in my home, but in my life. Japanese minimalism isn't about perfection. It's not about living in a home that looks like a magazine. It's not about owning the right number of things. It's about purpose, clarity, respect, presence. It's about slowing down enough to notice the small beauty in everyday life. The way the morning light lands on your kitchen table, the comfort of a cup of tea, the warmth of a blanket you love, the quiet joy of an uncluttered corner. Older Japanese people often say that simplicity deepens gratitude. When you live with fewer things, you see them more clearly. You appreciate them more fully. And in that appreciation, you find a sense of meaning that can't be bought. Maybe that's why Japanese homes often feel so peaceful. Not because they're empty, but because everything inside has a purpose. Nothing is screaming for attention. Nothing is fighting for space. And maybe that's why so many of us, especially those of us in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, are drawn to this philosophy now. We've lived the busy years. We've chased, collected, stored, saved, and filled our lives with more than we ever needed. And now, we want something different, something quieter, something truer. Japanese minimalism reminds us that life becomes clearer when we remove the noise. It teaches us that peace isn't found in having less, but in holding on to only what matters. And sometimes that begins with the simplest, most gentle choice of all: letting go.
When we reach our 40s, 50s, or even our 70s, something inside us begins to shift. Gently, quietly, but unmistakably. It's the feeling that the life we've been carrying on our backs for decades has grown heavier than we ever realized. The house we once filled with things to celebrate our success now feels crowded. The responsibilities we used to handle with energy and pride now drain us. And the noise in our minds, the plans, the expectations, the worries, no longer feels like a sign of a full life, but a sign that we've drifted too far from ourselves. For many people in this season of life, that's when minimalism calls out, not as a trend, not as a rigid set of rules, but as an invitation to finally set down all the extra we've been carrying, to breathe a little deeper, to remember who we are underneath all the busyness. I once heard someone say that the older we get, the more clearly we see what actually matters. And maybe that's true. When you're young, you build, you collect, you strive, you chase. But as the years pass, you start noticing that so much of what you gathered along the way no longer serves you. The closet full of clothes you never wear, the drawers overflowing with just-in-case items, the commitments you agreed to out of habit rather than joy, the mental load that has lived in your head for too long. And one day, you look around your home or inside your heart and quietly admit, I don't need all of this anymore. That moment is powerful. It's honest. It's freeing. and it's the very beginning of a more peaceful life. Japanese minimalism has become a gentle guide for many people in this stage of life, especially here in the United States. It's not just about owning fewer things. It's about living with intention. It's about choosing space over clutter, clarity over confusion, peace over pressure. People often say that when they adopt a minimalist lifestyle, especially later in life, several things begin to happen almost immediately. First, stress melts away. Not all at once, but slowly, like ice left out on a warm day. You walk into your living room and realize your mind doesn't feel as crowded as it used to. Clear spaces create clear thoughts. Fewer things to manage means fewer things to worry about. Second, mental clarity increases. You can think more clearly. Decisions feel easier. You wake up with a sense of order instead of chaos. You finally have room, mentally and emotionally, to reflect on what you truly want in the years ahead. Third, many people experience better sleep. With fewer distractions and less visual noise, the home becomes calmer. Calmer home, calmer mind. And a calmer mind rests better. Nights become quieter, deeper, more restorative. Fourth, and perhaps most beautiful, people say they feel lighter in their own homes. Not physically lighter, but emotionally. It's a sense of breathing freely again, a sense of walking into each room and feeling welcomed instead of overwhelmed. But the most important change of all, the one that touches the heart, is this. Minimalism helps us reconnect with ourselves. For years, maybe decades, many of us have been putting ourselves last. We've taken care of families, careers, homes, responsibilities, everything and everyone. Somewhere along the way, we forgot to check in with our own souls. But when the noise quiets, when the clutter clears, when we finally have space to sit still and notice our own thoughts, we rediscover the person we used to be, the person we still are. That rediscovery is priceless. It's healing. It brings back clarity, hope, and meaning. And perhaps for the first time in a long time, we feel at home, not just in our houses, but in ourselves. So why do people between 40 and 70 choose this lifestyle? Because they're ready for peace. Because they've carried enough. Because they know that life isn't about owning more. It's about living more deeply, more fully, more intentionally. And minimalism is simply the doorway that leads them back to a life that finally feels like their own. I used to believe that the only way to build a meaningful life was to keep adding more things, more plans, more responsibilities, more of everything that made the days feel full, but the heart feels strangely empty. It took me years to realize that maybe the fullness I was chasing was the very thing standing between me and the peace I longed for. And if you're listening now, maybe you're beginning to feel the same. That gentle whisper inside saying, there must be another way. Today, I want to share 3 simple principles that helped me slow down, breathe again, and rediscover a quieter, more purposeful kind of life. They're not dramatic, they're not complicated, but they changed everything. Principle 1. Less, but better. There was a time when my home felt cramped, not because it was small, but because it was filled with things I didn't love, things I'd kept just in case, things I'd forgotten I owned, things that carried more dust than meaning. One day, I looked at a shelf packed with old mugs, all mismatched and unused, and asked myself, why am I holding on to this? So I chose one mug, the one I truly enjoyed,
the one that felt good in my hands on quiet mornings, and I let the others go. And strangely, that tiny decision made the whole kitchen feel lighter. It reminded me of something important. We don't need more things. We need the right things. One good chair instead of 3 old ones. One teapot you genuinely love instead of 5 you never touch. When you keep what matters and release what doesn't, your home becomes more comfortable and your mind does too. When you hold on to only what brings meaning, the house becomes softer, and so does the heart. Principle 2. Space is healing. The Japanese have a beautiful belief. A clear room creates a clear mind. And I've found this to be true, especially as I get older. There is something deeply healing about space, even a small one, that invites the mind to rest. Think of a quiet corner where you can sit with a cup of tea, a simple window where the morning light spills in, a little patch of open floor you keep clear just because it feels good to breathe there. These spaces don't demand anything from you. They don't judge, they don't hurry, they don't push. They simply offer room. Room for your shoulders to drop, for your breath to slow, for your thoughts to settle. For so many of us, life has become crowded. Our homes, our calendars, our minds, all overflowing. But when we create empty space, even just a little, it becomes a quiet refuge where the soul can recover from the weight of the world. In those pockets of openness, the mind finally rests. Principle 3. Purposeful living. As I've walked deeper into minimalism, I've learned that the most powerful question isn't, do I want this? It's, does this bring meaning to my life? It's a question I ask myself in simple moments. Do I really need this new item? Does this commitment align with the life I want? Does this habit bring me closer to peace or farther away? Purposeful living doesn't mean having everything figured out. It doesn't mean living perfectly. It simply means living intentionally. When you clean your home with purpose, it becomes more than a chore. When you brew tea with purpose, it becomes a ritual of calm. When you sit still and breathe, even for a moment, it becomes an act of self-kindness. Little by little, your days stop feeling accidental. They start feeling like they belong to you again. When you live with purpose, even the simplest acts become gentle rituals that quiet the soul. A final thought. If you're listening to this, chances are life has felt heavy lately. You're tired of the noise, the pressure, the expectations. You're longing for clarity, for breathing room, for a sense of peace that feels real and lasting. Just know this, you don't find peace by adding more. You find it by creating space in your home, in your mind, in your heart. Start small. Keep what matters. Choose quiet. Live with intention. And slowly, beautifully, life becomes lighter. Not because the world has slowed down, but because you have. That is where peace begins.
Kenji was 67, the year everything changed. He had lived his whole life in a quiet neighborhood in Kyoto, narrow streets, wooden houses touched by time, and mornings that smelled of green tea and rain. For decades, his home was filled with laughter, shared meals, and the soft presence of the woman he loved. But when she passed, the house seemed to exhale into silence. At first, Kenji tried to hold on to everything. Every drawer, every shelf, every corner was crowded with memories, old photographs, teacups they bought together, stacks of letters, souvenirs from years of travel. He told himself these things kept her close, but with each passing day, he felt heavier, as though the weight of the objects pressed against his chest. The home he once cherished began to feel like a museum of a life that no longer existed. One rainy afternoon, he found her favorite scarf tucked inside a cabinet. The scent had faded, but the memory it carried was vivid. Her laughter, her gentle hands, the way she looked at him across the table. He sat down on the tatami floor and cried for the first time in months, not because the scarf brought sadness, but because he finally understood something. Holding on to everything was keeping him from holding on to what mattered. And so, slowly, quietly, he began to change. He started with a single drawer. Inside were things he hadn't touched in years: broken pens, expired papers, loose buttons, old receipts. Sorting through them felt strange at first. Each object asked a silent question. Does this still belong to my life? Most of the answers were no. Little by little, Kenji began letting go, not of memories, but of the things that no longer carried meaning. He kept the photograph of their wedding day because it made him smile. He kept the teacup she used every morning, the one with the small crack she never minded. He kept the letters she wrote during the early years of their marriage, but the rest, the clutter, the forgotten, the unnecessary, he released. As the rooms grew lighter, something inside him did too. He no longer walked through the house with the heaviness of grief pressing on his shoulders. Instead, he felt space, air, a sense of quiet that didn't hurt, but healed. One morning, as sunlight slipped through the shoji screens, Kenji decided to create a small tea corner by the window. Just a tatami mat, a kettle, and a simple wooden tray. It wasn't elaborate. It wasn't meant to be. It was a space to breathe, a space to start again. Every morning, he would sit there with a cup of sencha, watching the steam rise and disappear. At first, he thought of his wife, wishing she were there to share the moment. But over time, those thoughts softened into gratitude. Gratitude that he had loved so deeply. Gratitude that their life had been full. Gratitude that even loss could lead him back to himself. One day, when a neighbor asked him about his newfound calm, he smiled gently and said something she never forgot. When I simplified my home, I simplified the sorrow inside my heart. He didn't mean that minimalism erased the pain. Grief never disappears entirely. But by clearing away the things that no longer served him, he made room for what still did: peace, remembrance, gentle living. Japanese minimalism for Kenji wasn't about owning less for the sake of less. It was about honoring the present without being buried by the past. It was about understanding that letting go isn't losing. Sometimes it's returning. Returning to clarity. Returning to balance. Returning to life. And this is the quiet gift of Japanese minimalism. It teaches us that decluttering isn't really about the home. It's about the heart. It's about clearing the mental noise, the emotional weight, the shadows of yesterday, so we can step into today with a little more light. For anyone feeling overwhelmed, tired, or lost in the noise of modern life, Kenji's story is a reminder. You don't have to change everything at once. Start with a single drawer, a single corner, a single morning of quiet tea, And slowly, gently, you might find that as your home grows lighter, your spirit does too.
You don't need a perfect morning routine, a brand new journal, or a life-changing revelation to begin again. Sometimes all you need is 3 quiet minutes, right where you are. I learned that on a day when everything felt heavy. The house was cluttered, my mind was loud, and no matter how much I tried to organize my time, something inside me remained tangled. Maybe you know that feeling, when the noise outside starts to echo inside you. That afternoon, instead of trying to fix everything at once, I decided to do something small. I walked to a tiny corner of my living room, a place I normally passed without noticing. I looked around and picked up one object I no longer loved, no longer needed, no longer connected with. It was a little ceramic piece I'd kept for years, more out of habit than meaning. I held it in my hands and then let it go. One small item, one small decision, but somehow it felt like I had opened a tiny window inside my own chest. A little more space, a little more breath. Then I sat down. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Once, twice, 3 slow times. And in those breaths, something softened. The tension in my shoulders loosened, the noise in my mind settled a bit. Life didn't magically become simple, but I felt myself returning, not to the tasks waiting for me, but to me. We often wait for the right moment to start living differently. We think peace will come after we retire, after the house is in order, after the kids settle, after our health improves, after we reach some imaginary line where everything finally makes sense. But peace doesn't wait for perfect timing. It shows up when we give it the smallest space to enter. Just one breath, one choice, one corner. That's why today, here on Simple Earth Studio, I want to offer you a simple practice. Nothing complicated, nothing demanding. Just a gentle invitation to come home to yourself. Choose one small corner in your home. A nightstand, a kitchen shelf, the side table by your favorite chair. Remove one item that no longer brings meaning. Not an entire drawer, not a whole room, just one thing. Something you've held on to out of habit, guilt, or routine. Let your hand rest on it. Feel its weight. And then choose to let it go. Then sit down and breathe. 3 slow breaths. In and out. In and out. In and out. That's it. 3 minutes that cost nothing, require nothing, but open the door to something deeper. Because this small act, this tiny gesture, is the beginning of a lighter life. When you clear one small space in your home, you clear one small space in your heart. When you breathe with intention, even for just a moment, you remind yourself that you're still here, still capable of choosing softness, choosing clarity, choosing peace. And maybe that's what so many of us are searching for now, especially in this fast, restless world, a reminder that we don't have to fix everything at once. We don't have to rush our way into meaning. We don't have to earn our way into calm. We can begin slowly, gently, with kindness for ourselves. I've come to believe that the life we long for, the one with room for joy, stillness, presence, and connection, doesn't arrive through grand changes. It arrives through small choices, repeated over time. A few breaths in the morning light, a quiet corner cleared of what no longer serves us, a moment of noticing, truly noticing, the way sunlight touches the floor, or how warm your tea feels in your hands. These moments are not trivial. They are anchors. They hold us steady when life becomes overwhelming. They remind us that peace is not somewhere out there. It grows right here, inside the choices we make each day. So today, if you're tired or overwhelmed, let this be your gentle encouragement. You can begin now. Not next month, not when life settles, not when everything is perfect. Just 3 minutes. One corner. One item. 3 breaths. And as you sit there, in that small, uncluttered space, you might feel the faintest shift inside you. A quiet opening, a soft exhale, a little lightness. That is the beginning of a lighter life. A life with room for joy, room for peace, and room for what truly matters.
I used to think minimalism was just a trend. Clean rooms, empty shelves, perfectly folded clothing. But the more life pressed on me, the more I understood why Japanese minimalism has touched so many hearts. It isn't about owning less for the sake of appearances. It's about living with intention and finally giving yourself permission to breathe. I remember clearing out a small drawer one quiet afternoon. Nothing dramatic, just old receipts, tangled cords, things I'd forgotten I kept. But as I removed each item, something inside me softened. The space felt lighter, and so did I. It was the first time I realized that letting go of physical things can open a doorway to emotional peace. Japanese minimalism isn't a quick fix or a pretty aesthetic. It's a gentle journey, a return to what truly matters. It teaches us to honor the present moment, to choose purpose over clutter, and to create a home that supports who we are becoming, not who we used to be. If you've been longing for calm, for clarity, for a life that feels meaningful again, maybe this is the path you've been searching for. One simple step at a time toward a softer, more peaceful way of living.